All right. So Leap of Courage is currently 4.5 years old. And there's a pattern that I've noticed that shows up occasionally, but often enough that it's worth you knowing about so you can be prepared and know what to expect so that you're not just pulled out with the rug pulled out under you. That's the saying. Caught off guard. So you have probably heard of something called the strongman competitions. They take place internationally, all over the world, but mostly here in the US. And it is a whole bunch of just very physically demanding and strenuous physical activities that are also psychologically demanding, emotionally demanding because of the physical strain, right? And so why do I bring this up? There's an analogy here. Essentially, in the strongman competitions, they psychologically mess with you on purpose. Now, here, I don't mess with you psychologically on purpose, but sometimes your own psyche will appear to play tricks on you. And so, in the strongman competitions, they have a secret thing in there called false peaks, a pseudo peak. Think of like a mountain and you just climb to the top. But then eventually you realize it's not the actual top. So in the strongman competitions, there'll be these activities where you're carrying super heavy, awkward shaped objects up a hill, and you can see the top of the hill. And you get there, eventually you get there. It takes a long time to get there, but eventually you get there. And as soon as you get to the top, something comes up into there's a new thing in your view in the distance, an even higher peak that was hidden from your view. And it only got into view as soon as you got to the peak that you thought was the top that you had to get to. And so you're about to just break out into celebration internally because you can have a break and you get to stop and you get there. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh shit, I'm just getting started. That analogy can tie into here at Leap of Courage because it's a common enough pattern that I see that happens here is a man will join Leap of Courage with such bravery and enthusiasm and dedication and commitment. And it is fantastic and amazing and phenomenal. And he'll be going through the program, cannonballing his way into it. And then life starts to feel pretty darn good. There's things like joy and happiness and sensitivities to new experiences that feel really, really good. It's kind of like living on cloud nine. And this is essentially getting to what is sometimes a false peak. And sometimes you're up there living and loving life and celebrating for a couple weeks or a few months. And then all of a sudden, you realize it was a false peak, but still worth celebrating, very much so still worth celebrating. And then your subconscious mind says, oh, okay, you don't have all of these distractions anymore. You don't have all of these escapism behaviors anymore. And there's a twinge of discomfort. You're no longer running away and hiding from it through pornography or video games or mindless doom scrolling or Netflix binging or emotional eating or vaping or whatever it might be that you're using to escape from the discomfort from within. And the subconscious mind has just been a little bit on this like joyride for a few weeks or a few months on this false peak. And then the subconscious mind goes, wait a sec. There's all of these unresolved things from the past, from childhood or previous relationships or, these trauma things, whatever it might be. And the subconscious mind goes, you know, we seem like, I say we, when I say we in this context, it's like your conscious and subconscious mind having a conversation together. So your subconscious mind might say, you know what? We're stronger now. We have more space and room to feel things and to allow things to surface. And you're no longer shoving them back down and hiding from them. So let's allow the big, scary things to come up and emerge and surface. And then when that happens, it feels like you might be falling off of a 10,000-foot cliff after you just worked your ass off to get to this peak that felt so amazing. And you were just riding the cloud nine of that peak there. And then the subconscious mind goes, that was really nice, but we just remembered we have more inner demons to bring to the surface and explore and work with. And it might feel like the scariest thing you've ever experienced, and it might be very, very intense. And there might be a lot of crying and sadness or loneliness or rage and anger and all sorts of things might just show up as you're falling down this 10,000-foot cliff is what it might feel like. So I say this not to scare you, but to prepare you, because this is a pattern and it's not a bad thing if it happens. It is not a bad thing if it happens. It is a tremendous sign of growth. And it's a tremendous sign that your subconscious mind is saying to you, it's time to get to the next peak, which is even bigger than the one you were just at, which means it's going to feel even better when you get there. And the tools that you've learned along the way since then are going to help you tremendously along the way. And in fact, if you've gotten to this point where you got to a peak and then you fell off a 10,000-foot cliff and then you are going up the next peak with new things to work through, new self-awarenesses to discover, new things from your past to resolve, new people to forgive. Maybe it's family members or loved ones, it usually is. So those are part of the baggage that you're carrying, so to speak, the weights, the metaphorical weights that you're carrying up the peak. And if you get to the point where you get to a peak, fall off, new peak, even bigger, it almost certainly means you already have all of the tools that you need and the knowledge that you've gained in order to make it to your next peak. You already have everything that you have: tools, knowledge, experience, resources, internal resources to get there. Because essentially you use the same tools you got to the first peak. And now you're going to apply them to the second peak and gain new self-awarenesses and have new internal breakthroughs along the way with the same tools, with the same strategies. And you may learn some new ones along the way. You may shift and alter the way that you used them. And that's normal and common and totally okay. Or you might even strengthen and deepen the ways you've already been using the strategies and techniques because they work so well for you to get to that first peak. And you might be wondering, oh man, if I got to that next second peak, does that mean I'm going to have like a 50,000-foot fall and it's going to feel even worse? Usually that first one feels the biggest and the hardest and the scariest. And the subsequent falls that happen after that, you're usually pretty darn equipped to handle them. And whatever falls you have, every single one of them is a mandatory opportunity for growth. Every single fall you have after that is a mandatory opportunity for growth and a thing to be grateful for, even though it might be really challenging. But the good thing is all of the resiliency and things that you've learned along the way to get to that second peak, that second metaphorical peak, you're pretty darn equipped in this world for pretty much the rest of your life, for whatever comes your way. The things that are going to be challenging you will not experience them with the same intensity. The intensity will be diminished, and the length of time that you experience the challenge will be shortened. So it doesn't mean we don't get triggered anymore by things. It just means we use the trigger always as an amazing opportunity for growth. Every trigger is a learning opportunity for growth. And you will not be as triggered as intensely or for the same length of time. That's an amazing place to get to. So I just wanted to share this with you because it's something that is pretty commonly experienced. And another way to potentially think about this, but it really is a different subset in and of itself, but there's some overlap, is when we reach a goal for ourselves, we could call each and every goal a new little mountaintop, right? And we get there and we realize there are taller mountains out there. And I never really looked at those as opportunities because I never thought it would be possible for me to be on a taller mountain than I already got to. And so now you are setting your goals even higher because you realized that you can, because you realized it's a possibility. And this is a little bit like it's essentially moving the goalpost. You're moving the goalpost as you expand the possibilities for yourself and you become aware of the possibilities for yourself. You actually believe, you now know that it is entirely possible and true, and you believe it, that you can change the goalpost. You can change it to be a higher mountaintop of possibilities for where you want to go in your life, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, who you want to be, how you want to show up in this world for other people that you love and care about, for your community, for whoever that is important to you, right? In whatever way or shape that looks like. So be aware that there are false peaks. But when you get there, it's also a true peak. It's a true peak. I don't want to diminish it by calling it a false peak because it's a true peak. Every peak you get to is worth being very proud of yourself for and celebrating. But don't get the false thought of it's going to feel like you're on the peak forever, because we don't stay on the peak forever for two reasons. One, we may fall off, which is mandatory and necessary for us to get to the next one. Or sometimes we might just be on a peak and not fall off and just say, hey, I'm in a place for growth. I got to this peak. I would like to have more growth in my life. Let me design and create and choose my new mountain peak, AKA goal, AKA destination on the map that you want for yourself. So when you're on a peak, you can go one of two ways: fall off and grow. When there's a lot of those inner demons that we still need to heal from, or old emotional wounds of the past is a better way to put it. Or you might just be up there and say, hey, I'm feeling pretty good up here. Let's just keep on climbing. So there we go. Here's a little bit of metaphors about mountain peaks and your journey, and whether you're going up or down once you get to a particular peak. We don't always get to choose, but we do get to choose how we respond to either falling off, right? Climbing back up to a higher place, or just responding by choosing to create larger opportunities for yourself. All right, there we go. That's it for the day. Jessica Jordan signing off.